Deep down inside of every human heart, I think there lives a great, great desire for justice. Regardless of where you come from, regardless of what your background is or the place you grew up, the country you grew up, I think we all want to know and we want to have confidence that when people do things that are wrong, when they hurt others or harm others, when they break the law, we want to know that justice will be enforced. And we look to government, we look to rulers and authorities. We look to judges to make sure that this justice is enforced. But if you live in a country, for example, where the government is corrupt or where judges are corrupt, when they turn a blind eye to injustice, then you discover that the citizens of that country, they lose all respect because these people are not worthy of respect. Well, even though we live in the country of Canada, we ultimately live in God's world. And so we're called to live according to his law, according to his command, and according to his will. And so today we encounter a difficult topic. And that is the topic of what happens to those who don't live according to God's law, those who live in rebellion to God's law. And the answer is that they will ultimately face consequences. They will face God's judgment. For example, if you look at Romans 2, we read there, God will repay each person according to what they have done. To those who by persistence in doing good seek glory, honor, and immortality, he will give eternal life. But for those who are self-seeking and who reject the truth and follow evil, there will be wrath and anger. Instead of enjoying the presence of God forever, those who live in rebellion to God and who reject his laws, they will be forever cast out from the presence of God into a place called hell. Now, a lot of people struggle with the concept and with the idea of hell. And there are tons of questions about hell. And we don't have all the answers. But even though this is a difficult topic, and maybe not a popular topic, it is something that we need to talk about. In fact, when we look at the Bible, we discover that the person who talked about hell the most was Jesus. Jesus came and he had this message which was clear, a message which said we're called to live according to God's law, that we're to love the Lord our God with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, and we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. And Jesus was clear that if we don't do that, if we reject that way of life, then there will be consequences. In fact, Jesus came for the sole purpose of giving his life so that he could shield and protect us from those consequences. Now, one of the passages in which Jesus talks about hell is a parable in Luke 16. It's a parable that's told about a rich man and a poor man, a beggar named Lazarus. The poor man, the beggar, he survives in this life by kind of eating the scraps, the crumbs that fall from the wealthy man's table. But when they die, the poor man, Lazarus, goes to heaven and he's seated with Abraham. But the rich man is cast into hell. As he's suffering there, he looks across and this rich man sees Lazarus seated with Abraham, and he calls out to Abraham and he asks Abraham to send him Lazarus to serve him, to bring him water so that he might have some relief. And this is what Abraham says in response. Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. Now, obviously, this is a parable. It's a story, and it's not meant to give us an exact description of hell, as if you can kind of see from one place to the other. The reason that Jesus tells this parable is because he wants to be clear about the fact that our decisions and our choices in this life will have consequences, both in this life and in the life to come. Jesus wants to point out that someone like this wealthy man who's in hell, he's not being treated unfairly. This man is actually getting what he deserves. In this life, he chose to serve himself and to look after himself. He didn't love the Lord his God with his whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, and he certainly did not love his neighbor as himself. And so he's getting what he deserves. But the truth is that that's what we all deserve. Because none of us loves the Lord our God with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. And we definitely don't love our neighbors as ourselves. And so this man is getting what we deserve as well. But here's the good news. It's that Jesus has come to take the punishment that we deserve. And in order to really understand the good news of Jesus, we have to understand the bad news about hell. Rico Tice, a pastor and an evangelist who I really enjoy, he puts it this way. He says, we can't fully appreciate what it means to be raised up to the promise of heaven until we realize that we're raised up from the prospect of hell. We serve a God who is good and a God who is just. But we also serve a God who is tremendously merciful. And so we deserve the prospect of hell. But God holds out to us the promise of heaven through Jesus Christ. And that's the promise that we hold on to. But that's also the promise that we're called to hold out for others.